Krishna Kesav Pahimam.
Okay. So that's lovely. I put my phone down and it's gone all the way to the beginning of the chapter. Carry on, Prabhu, carry on.
Okay. Haribol. The personified Vedas stated that the persons born after the creation of this material world cannot understand the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by manipulating this material knowledge, just as the person born in a particular family cannot understand the position of his great-grandfather who lived before the birth of the recent generation. We are unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan or Krishna, who exists eternally in the spiritual world. In the English 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that the Supreme Person who lives eternally in the spiritual kingdom of God, Sanatana Dharma, can be approached only by devotional service.
Lovely, Archana.
Hare Krishna. As for the material creation, Brahma is the first created person. Before Brahma, there was no living creatures with this material world. It was void and dark until Brahma was born on the lotus flower of that sprouted from the abdomen of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Garbhodakshai Vishnu is an expansion of Ksharodakshai Vishnu. Karnodakshai Vishnu is an expression of Sankrasana, and Sankrasana is an expression of Balarama, who is an immediate expression of the Lord Krishna. After the creation of Brahma, the two kinds of demigods were born. Demigods like the four brothers Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanakumara, who are representative of renunciation of the word, and demigods like Marichi and the descendants who are meant to enjoy the material world. From these two kinds of demigods were gradually manifested all other living entities, including the human beings. Thus, all living creatures create creatures within the material world, including Brahma. All the demigods and all the Rakshasas are to be considered modern. This means that they were all born recently. Therefore, just as a person born recently in a family cannot understand the situation of his distant forefather, no one within the material world can understand the position of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world, because the material world has only recently been created. Although they have a long duration of the existence, all the manifestation of the material world, namely the time element, the living entities, the Vedas, and the growth of subtle material elements are created at some point. Thus, any process manufactured within this created situation as means for understanding the original source of creation is to be considered modern.
Okay, that's a great point. That's an amazing point. It's recent. That's why, in terms of time, this is explained by Kapila Dev in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He explains the concept of time down to the Nimesh. Who knows what the Nimesh is? Time, even actually beyond, even smaller than Nimesh. But a Nimesh is one of the smallest amount of time. The Nimesh is what your blink of an eye. So let's all do a blink of an eye, please. There we are. That's a Nimesh. One blink of an eye is called a Nimesh. And it's explained that when Brahma, he stole the calves and the cowherd boys of Krishna to test Krishna. He heard that Krishna, he may be the Supreme Personality of God, because of course Lord Brahma's direct relationship is with Vishnu, and Vishnu shook Lord Brahma's hand personally at the creation after doing so much tapasya for a very, very long period of time. So he was testing Krishna, and Brahma he took away Krishna's cowherd boys and calves for a nimesh, according to Brahma. And that was one whole year on this planet. So the very short amount of time for Brahma, one blink of an eye, is 1 year for us on this planet.
Yeah.
And now when you blink an eye, is it a significant thing for you?
No.
Is it something that you think, wow, I've just blinked my eyes. I've just had a blink. No, it's we don't even think of it. It's unconscious. So similarly, as far as Brahma's concerned, we don't exist. we practically don't exist. That's how insignificant we are. Okay, go ahead, Janaki.
Therefore, by the process of self-realization or God-realization through fruitive activities, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, one cannot actually approach the supreme source of everything. When the creation is completely terminated, when there is no existence of the Vedas, no existence of material time, no existence of the gross and subtle material elements, and when all the living entities are in the non-manifested stage resting within Narayan, then all these manufactured processes become null and void and cannot act. Devotional service, however, is eternally going on in the eternal spiritual world. Therefore, the only factual process of self-realization or God realization is devotional service. And if one takes to this process, he takes to the real process of God realization.
Fantastic.
And this, yeah.
Go ahead. Next one, Prabhuji.
Huh?
In this
Jai
regard,
Shri Prabhu.
in this regard, Srila Siradhana
Sridhar.
Sridhara Swami, in this regard, Srila Sridhar Swami has composed a verse which conveys the idea that the supreme source of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so great and unlimited that it is not possible for the living entity to understand him by any material acquisition. One should therefore pray to the Lord to be engaged in his devotional service eternally, so that by the grace of the Lord, one can understand the supreme source of creation. The supreme source of creation, the Supreme Lord, reveals himself only to the devotees in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, because you are my devotee and because you are my intimate friend, I shall reveal to you the process of understanding me. In other words, the supreme source of creation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot be understood by our own endeavor. We have to please him with devotional service, and then he will reveal himself to us. Then we can understand him to some extent.
To some extent, yeah. Even Brahmaji, who's the most intelligent being in the universe, outside of Vishnu Tattva and Shakti Tattva, or Shiva Tattva, he says, I do not understand the Supreme Person. He was completely bewildered during that Leela when he stole Krishna's calves, and then Krishna manifested his Narayan forms. He manifested Narayan forms to Brahma, and Brahma was completely, totally bewildered. It's called the Brahma Vimohan Leela. It's in the 3rd chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Brahma Vimohan Leela, or the 3rd, not the 3rd chapter, excuse me, it's the 3rd part 3, or canto 3. Yeah, very interesting how Brahma himself is. So what to speak of us? But it's explained in the Mahabharata, Achintya Kalume Bhava, or Se Bhava. I can't remember. I'm working on this shloka right now, actually. But we cannot understand inconceivable things. And Bhagawan is inconceivable. His body is inconceivable. His form is inconceivable because it's not made of matter. It's pure spiritual Satchitananda. and his leelas are inconceivable. His energies are inconceivable. How he does things, how he acts, and how he comes into this world brings the spiritual world with him. He brings his Dham with him. So when Krishna comes to Gokul, Vrindavan, when he's here on the earth planet, that Gokul that we go to, we see Vrindavan, we go there, and we see Vamsivat and the Raman Reti, all these lovely places. But that Vrindavan, eternal Vrindavan, he manifests that here. It becomes fully manifest. It's like, you know, you go into a train station and in a quiet time of the day, there's nobody there. And then suddenly, you know, 12 o'clock midday, it's thousands of people there and it's so many trains. So, you know, it's like in the same place, but a completely different, different energy, different, it's manifested differently when Krishna is personally present. Yeah. So go ahead, Archana.
There are different kinds of philosophers who have tried to understand the supreme source by their mental speculation. There are generally 6 kinds of mental speculators whose speculations are called Sadarshana. All the philosophers are impersonalist and are known as Mayavadis. Even one of them has tried to establish his own opinion, although they all have later compromised and stated that all opinions lead to the same goals and that every opinion is therefore valid. According to the prayers of personified Vedas, however, none of them is valid because their process of knowledge is created within the temporary material world. They have all missed the real point, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the absolute truth, can be understood only by devotional service.
Yeah, that's a famous verse in Bhagavad Gita 1855. Who knows Bhagavad Gita 1855? Very famous verse. Bhaktyamam. Go on, Janaki, give us a blast. Bhaktyamam. Yes, Bhaktyamam abhijanati. 1855 Bhagavad Gita. Very, very important verse. Yavanyash chasmi tatvataha tatomam tatvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. So this 1855 Bhagavad Gita has been quoted here, Janaki, 1855, has been mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in this, the last paragraph, that only by devotional service can I be understood. And Krishna says that. I'm sure Janaki knows this shloka, 1855, Bhaktyamam abhijanati,
Yavam Yas Chasmi Tatvataha.
tatomam,
I've forgotten. I can't think.
tatvato gyatva.
Vishite Tadanantaram.
There we are.
Yeah.
See, it was there. It was there.
Thank you.
One can only understand me as I am through.
Devotional service.
And when one is in full consciousness of me, one can enter into my eternal kingdom.
Only
Okay.
by loving devotion to me does one come to know who I am in truth. Then having come to know me, my devotees enter into full consciousness of me.
Yeah, vishate tad. Vishate means to enter into. So that's a famous verse they quoted by Srila Prabhupada. He's mentioned that. And of course, all the other 6 kinds of mental speculators or philosophies, karma mimamsa, Sankhya, there's so many other types of philosophies propounded by different Gautama Rishi, Nyaya, the logic of the Nyayavad, etc. All these different philosophies, they are manifestations of this world. They're created in this world. So it's not possible to understand something outside of this world when you're in the world. What's an example of that? You're inside something, but you can't. Fish, for example, fish. Now, if you're a fish, Jai Shri Krishna Prabhu, what kind of fish do you like? What do you prefer? A shark or a dolphin, maybe? Or they're not fish, they're mammals, but you know. Archana, what kind of fish do you like? A tropical fish, very nice one. So these fish are down there in the down in the water. They cannot possibly understand what's going on in the land. So these philosophers, they're just like fish, aquatics, and they can only understand the watery existence of their world. This world that we're living in, the Earth planet, is not an Earth planet. It's a water planet. 70% covered by water. Our body is what? 60%? Up to the age of 5 or 7 years of age, our body's 70% water. And then it goes up to down to 60%. It's a water body. So without water bodies, we can't understand even the higher planets. We can't even understand what's going on in Swargalok, Mahalok, Janalok, Tapalok. What to speak of Siddhalok and Sadyalok and these Brahmalok is, we can't even understand what's going on in Swarg. What to speak of Goloka, the spiritual world. We're very, very, very limited. Go ahead, Janaki.
I'm not sure where we are because my internet went off.
One class of philosopher. It's about two paragraphs down
Oh,
from
yes.
you.
Okay, yeah. One class of philosophers known as Mimamsakas, represented by sages such as Jaimini, have concluded that everyone should engage in pious activities or prescribed duties, and that such activities will lead one to the highest perfection. But this is contradicted in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that by pious activities, one may be elevated to the heavenly planets. But as soon as one's accumulation of pious activities is used up, one has to leave the enjoyment of a higher standard of material prosperity in the heavenly planets and immediately come down again to these lower planets, where the duration of life is very short and where the standard of material happiness is of a lower grade. The exact words used in the Gita are Shine Punya Martilokam Vishanti. Therefore, the conclusion of the Mimamsaka philosophers that pious activities will lead one to the absolute truth is not valid. Although a pure devotee is by nature inclined to pious activities, no one can attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious activities alone. Pious activities may purify one of the contamination caused by ignorance and passion, but this purification is automatically attained by a devotee constantly engaged in hearing the transcendental message of Godhead in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or similar scriptures. From the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that even a person who is not up to the standard of pious activities, but who is absolutely engaged in devotional service, is to be considered well situated on the path of spiritual perfection. It is also said in the Bhagavad Gita that a person who is engaged in devotional service with love and faith is guided from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord himself as Paramatma, or the spiritual master sitting within one's heart, gives the devotee exact directions by which he can gradually go back to Godhead. The conclusion of the Mimamsaka philosophers is not actually the truth, which can lead one to real understanding.
There we are. This is Karma Mimamsa, and Krishna, when his father Nanda Maharaj was performing the Indra Yagya, and he was preparing this Indra Yagya to please Lord Indra, so that rains will come and the crops will grow. Krishna, he quoted this philosophy of Karma Mimamsa to his father. So Krishna, he even spoke the same philosophy to try to defeat his father's ideas, but his father defeated him on this point. So these different philosophies, they're good as long as you don't have the Bhagavad Gita or the higher understanding of Krishna conscious philosophy. These Karma Mimamsa, they're good. There's nothing wrong with them. They're good if they don't have Krishna consciousness. If you have Krishna consciousness, then they become redundant. Just like, for example, before Prabhupada came to the West, and for hundreds of years in this country, people were going to church on a Sunday. Even myself. Let's welcome Smita. Smita, Mrs. Kotecha is here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tame kem cho Ajrat.
No, I'm not too good. But
I'm sorry. Just relax there and listen in.
Yeah, I just want to know what chapter so I can just try and follow.
87, we're coming towards the end of the 87th chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Janaki, did you go to the church when you was a young girl? Did you go to Sunday school and church? Janaki, did you go to church when you were younger?
Yes, I did. Yes,
So back in the 1950s and 60s, we were going to church regularly, you see, in this country. And before then, I mean, going back now into the 19th century, into the 1800s, and everyone went to church on a Sunday. It was like you didn't do anything. Everything stopped on Sunday. You went to the church. That was the highlight of the day, was going to church, coming home, having dinner with the family. It was a family day and it was church day. So that's a good thing. And Christianity is a very good thing. Islam is very good. All the religions have great value, but as long as you don't have Krishna conscious philosophy. As soon as we come to Krishna consciousness, the other faiths, the other levels of understanding, they become redundant. Because Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada says, the Bhagavad Gita contains all teachings of other faiths, plus a lot more. And that's just Bhagavad Gita. That's the ABC. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam, wow. We're talking about immense amount of philosophy spoken by great rishis and great teachers. Narada's instructions, Lord Shiva's instructions, Maitreya Rishi's instructions to Vidura, Kapila Dev's instructions to his mother, Devahuti. What other instructions are there? Maharaj Nimi is there. King Pachini Barishat, Narada Muni. Come on, think of somebody else in the philosophies of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Ramachandra's pastimes and leelas. What else is there in Srimad Bhagavatam? Fifth canto, Priyavrata and Brahma's instructions to to Priyavrata, and Narad Muni's instructions to the Prince Priyavrata, who became like a Manu. Anybody else can think of? Eighth canto, we've got Gajendra Moksha. We've got the great prayers and great philosophies. What else we got, Janaki? Seventh canto.
Seventh canto is the story of Prahlad Maharaj.
And Yudhishthira's instructions on Dharma. Narad Muni speaking to Yudhishthira on Dharma. Srimad Bhagavatam, the philosophy is there. We got so many different levels of understanding things, and it's just fabulous. So therefore, all their faiths are good. All the paths are good, as long as you don't have Krishna consciousness. As soon as you have Krishna consciousness, the other paths, they don't have the same weight anymore. They don't have the same importance, because Krishna consciousness is like the reservoir of knowledge, and the other faiths and other philosophies like Karma Mimamsa and Nyayavad and all these other philosophies, they're like little pools compared to a reservoir. Okay, let's carry on then. Smita, are you with us? Smita?
Sorry, yeah, I am with you, but
Okay,
I don't, I'll just follow
come to the
you.
end. We're coming to the end of the chapter 87. Similarly, there are Sankhya philosophers. We're
I'll
talking
try.
about different. Prabhupada's talking about Karma Mimamsa, and now he's going to Sankhya, and he'll talk about the two kinds of Sankhya philosophers. One is theistic, and one is atheistic Sankhya. The theistic Sankhya covers the 20. I think it's 24 or 25 elements, which include the Paramatma. And the atheistic Sankhya just deals with the 24 material elements without the inclusion of Paramatma. Okay, then, Jai Shri Krishna Prabhu, you can carry on there. Similarly, there are Sankhya philosophers.
Similarly, there are Sankhya philosophers, metaphysicians, or materialistic scientists who study this cosmic manifestation by their invented scientific method and do not recognize the supreme authority of God as the creator of the cosmic manifestation. They wrongly conclude that the reaction of the material elements are the original cause of creation. The Bhagavad Gita, however, does not accept this theory. It is clearly said that therein that behind the cosmic activities is the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This fact is corroborated by the Vedic injunctions Sadva Somya Dham Agar injunction Sadva Somya Dham Agra Asit, which means that the origin of the creation existed before the cosmic manifestation. Therefore, the material elements cannot be the cause of the material creation. Although the material elements are accepted as immediate cause, the ultimate cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. The Bhagavad Gita says, therefore, that material nature works under the direction of Krishna.
That's very nice. That's a new little line there. Sadva somyedam agra asit. Sadva somyedam agra asit, which means the origin of the creation existed before the creation itself, which makes sense. And of course, Prabhupada finishes this paragraph quoting Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 10. Who knows Bhagavad Gita 9:10? Maya Dhyakshena Prakriti.
Suyate Sacharacharam, 89 Nakanteya, Jagat
Vipari
Vipari, forgot.
Vartate.
Vartate.
Yeah, Vartate means to follow. Unlike Anuvartate means to follow all everything. Vartate. And the translation is?
I can't remember. I'm sorry, Pooh.
Material
I'm not too
nature.
well at. I'm not too well at the moment. So
Oh, sorry. Well, you're doing very well with the shlokas. Let's give her a big round of applause there.
Very cool.
Maya Dakshena Prakriti. I remember learning that on the roof of Soho Street in 1980. I was learning that one. I can remember many places I learned my shlokas, actually. Backs of vans or walking around selling candles in Scotland. I can remember many places. And this material nature is working under my direction, Krishna says, and is producing all moving and non-moving living entities. So basically, Krishna is the ultimate cause beyond the chemicals and the elements of nature. Okay, carry on. Who's next now? Archana. No. Janaki, you just read that, didn't you? No.
No, I didn't.
Carry on. The conclusion of the atheistic Sankhya.
Is that me?
Yeah.
The conclusion of the atheistic Sankhya philosophy is that because the effects of the material world are temporary or illusory, the cause is therefore also illusory. The Sankhya philosophers are in favor of voidism, but the actual fact is that the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that this cosmic manifestation is the temporary manifestation of his material energy. When this temporary manifestation is annihilated, its cause, the eternal existence of the spiritual world, continues as it is, and therefore the spiritual world is called Sanatan Dharma, the eternal abode. The conclusion of the Sankhya philosopher is therefore invalid.
Yes, and he's talking about Sankhya now, the atheistic Sankhya, which is propounded by the atheistic Kapila Dev. There's two Kapila Devs. One is Devahuti Putra Kapila Dev, and the other one is came much later, and he was an atheistic Kapila, and he propounded an atheistic idea of Sankhya, which is only quoting 24 elements of nature, the Panch Mahabhut, which is the 5 gross elements. Who can tell me what the 5 gross elements are? Go on, Archana. Go on. All right, then. I know that Janaki will know this, obviously.
Yeah, earth, water, fire, air, ether.
Panch Mahabhut. Then the 3 Shukshma elements.
Mind, intelligence, and false ego.
These are Shukshma, these are subtle. That's 8 elements. That's the 8. Then we have the 5 sense objects: taste, touch, hearing, sound. That's 13. Then we have the 5 senses, which are the Gyanendriyas. That brings us to 18. Then we have the 5 Karmendriyas. What are the Karmendriyas? Karmendriya. The 5 working senses, okay, that we have, 5 working senses. And then that brings us to 23. And then we have the Atma itself, 24. That's what the atheistic philosopher Kapila Dev quotes, bringing us to the level of Brahman realization. But the Sankhya philosophy of Devahuti's son Kapila Dev is with including Paramatma as well. That's 25 elements. So that's basically Sankhya, means to count, to analyze. So Archana, go ahead.
Thank you. Then there are the philosopher headed by Gautama and Kanada. They have studied the cause of effect of material elements and have ultimately come to the conclusion that auto combination is the original cause of creation. At present, the materialistic scientists follow in the footsteps of Gautama and Kanada, who propounded this theory called Parmanuvada. This theory, however, cannot be supported, for the original cause of everything is not interterms. This is come from in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as in the Vedas, where is in the stated Eko Narayana Asit. Only Narayana exists before the creation. Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedanta Sutra also says that the original cause is sentient and both indirectly and directly cognizant of everything within this creation. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha. I am the original cause of everything. And Matha Sarvam Prabhavate. From me, everything comes into existence. Therefore, atoms may form the basic combination of the material existence, but these atoms are generated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the philosophy of the Gautama and Kanada cannot be supported.
Yes, Gautama, he propounded this Nyayavad, the Vada of logic, or the Darshan, Nyaya Darshana, it's also called. and it's to logically analyze things. And we can, and some people are profoundly intelligent, very sharp intellect, and they can really work things out. Like some of the equations you see that the scientists can do using pi and algebra and various levels of maths. I look at it and I'm completely bewildered by it. It's just incredible, how they can just work things out and simplify the whole universe. But even if they do that, they're still not, they may even come to the point of the soul exists, but they can never understand the Paramatma. And they can never understand even Brahman properly. If you don't understand Paramatma, you can't really thoroughly understand Brahman, because you'll mistake Brahman to be the supreme and be all and end all of everything, which is not. The Brahman is simply the basis of the foundation of the spiritual world. That's all. Now, when you look at a house and you go in your house, you open your front door and you go in, do you start thinking about the foundation of the house? Oh, I hope the foundation's okay here. No, we don't think about it. We don't even consider, it's not even slightly in our mind, unless you have an earthquake. Well, if you have an earthquake, then you think, oh, I hope the foundation's okay. But, besides that, we don't think. Similarly, when we wake up in the morning, do we think, oh, am I breathing? No, we don't think about it. We're completely unconscious that we're breathing. Yet breath is the sustainable factor of our life. Without breathing, we can't live, but we don't think about it. So this Brahman realization means simply it's the basis of spiritual existence, and ultimately it's the basis of material existence, Brahman realization. But it's not the ultimate, as the Mayavadis try to establish, and indirectly Gautama and Kanada, these philosophers, they also try to indirectly establish Brahman as supreme. Go ahead, Prabhuji. Similarly,
impersonally stated by Astravakra and later by Sankaracharya, except that impersonal Brahman effulgence as the cause of everything. According to their theory, the material manifestation is temporary and unreal, whereas the impersonal Brahman effulgence is reality. But this theory cannot be supported either, because the Lord himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that the Brahman effulgence rests on his personality. It is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the Brahman effulgence is the personal bodily rays of Krishna. As such, impersonal Brahma cannot be the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. The original cause is the all-perfect, sentient personality of Godhead Govinda.
here we are. This is the Brahman effulgence, and of course it does exist. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Kotim Yach Kotesh Vashesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmanishtra Manantam Ashesha Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That's the shlok Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada is quoting here about how Brahman, Prabha, word Prabha, Yasya Prabha, Prabha means to go forward. Like in Gujarati, Kali Yuga no Prabha Vedeche, they say in Gujarati. Kali Yuga is going on like anything. And in the Prabha means expanding. So the Brahman is there as an expansion of the Lord's energy. And of course, what is the energy of the Lord? The living entities, the Vibhinanshas. So those Vibhinangsha living entities who are they prefer an impersonal form, as mentioned in Mantra 7 of the Ishopanishad, as Chitkana. The impersonal form of the soul is called Chitkana, a spiritual spark. So the soul is so amazing, it can become a tiny, insignificant 1/10,000th of size of a split hair, a spark of consciousness. That's how tiny. And the soul then can also expand to a great size, to a Brahma. And the soul is amazing, actually, what the soul can do. So to satisfy the nature, the soul can become either very tiny as a spiritual spark, or it can permeate the body of a Brahma, which is huge. So that's a little bit about Mayavad. We know about the Brahman and everything. So go ahead with the next one, Janaki.
Is that when God comes as
The most dangerous theory?
Go ahead, the most dangerous theory. All right, Archana, you go ahead because she's frozen for a minute.
The most dangerous theory of the personalist is the when God comes as an incarnation. He accepts as a material body created by the three modes of material nature. This Mayavada theory has been condemned by Lord Chaitanya as most offensive. He has said that anyone who accepts the transcendental body or personality of Godhead to be made of material nature commits the greatest offenses at the lotus feet of Vishnu. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita also stated that when the personality of Godhead descends in human form, only fools and rascals deride him. This actually occurred when Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, and Lord Chaitanya moved within human society as human beings.
Right, go ahead, Janaki, next one. No, she's still frozen. She's entered into Brahman. Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
The personified Vedas condemn the impersonal conception as a gross misrepresentation. In the Brahma Samhita, the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Ananda Chimaya Ras. The Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses a spiritual body, not a material body. He can enjoy anything through any part of his body, and therefore he is omnipotent. The limbs of a material body can perform only a particular function. For example, the hands cannot hold, but cannot see or hear. But because the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is made of Ananda Chimaya Rasa, and is thus Satchit Ananda Vigraha, he can enjoy anything and do everything with any of his limbs. Acceptance of the spiritual body as the law of the Lord as material is dictated by the tendency to equate the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the conditional soul. The conditional soul has a material body. Therefore, if God also has a material body, then the impersonalistic theory that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are one and the same can be very easily propagated.
Yeah, this is the dangerous philosophy of the materialists, the Mayavadis, and impersonalists. They say that when an avatar descends, he takes on a body made of the elements of nature, because they can't understand what a spiritual body is. They can't understand what pure consciousness is. And in purified, pure consciousness, one has a form made of consciousness. Because we're so covered by these gross senses, we can only appreciate gross existence. But existence is actually based on subtle energy. Like, for example, I'm a musician, and when I play music, you can't touch it. You can't really feel it. But music, when you play it, it affects you in different ways. Some music makes you happy. Some music makes you sleepy. Some music makes you cry. Some music makes you angry. because it's very subtle energy. And music is actually very close to spiritual existence because it's so subtle, but it affects us very greatly. And you can feel very inspired. Who's heard an orchestra playing? Who's gone to the Albert Hall or to a big concert hall and heard an orchestra? No? Nobody? Yes, you've been, Prabhu?
Well, not an. I suppose I went to see Lata Mangeshkar in Royal Albert Hall.
Oh,
So
well,
she-
there you go. There she'd have violins and she'd have
Yeah.
something playing there. That must have been very inspiring.
It was. I mean, considering that there's only one person singing, but the number of people with the different musical instruments is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, yeah. There's so many cellos and there's oboes and various types of stringed instruments. And when they, and you get the points in the music where it's empties, it goes empty, and there's just one instrument playing.
Yeah.
And when you have that one instrument playing, it sounds so amazing. And then gradually another one comes in. Then suddenly the whole orchestra, and you just lift it up, and it's his only sound.
Yeah.
You can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's so subtle. So similarly, if sound has that effect, what to speak of consciousness? No, and Krishna's flute is a person. Krishna's flute is also an expansion of himself. And when that flute is played, it's when we hear a normal flute, being played, the bansuri, or I went to the Bharata Vidya Bhavan many years ago to attend a concert by his name was something Majumdar. He was from Bengal. Forgot his first name now. I bought his tape there actually. I bought a tape recording he was selling. Something Majumdar. And he was playing, and he had about 8 or 9 different flutes. Some were big, very big ones, thick, some small. And all he did was with one tabla player and him all night for about 2 hours, played the flute. And it was so amazing, the sounds. So just as an example, I'm giving this a crude example, but just like, something as subtle and as it's kind of whimsical music in the sense it's very subtle. You can't see it. It just affects you so much. Isn't that right, Archana? Do you get affected by music sometimes? If you hear an old Bollywood song, you think, oh, when I was 15, I remember that song. Smita, do you?
Even Krishna Kirtan is really affect us when it comes really louder, and when we attend any Kirtan, it's really beautiful.
Or a beautiful bhajan sung very nicely with nice instruments. We get very affected by it. How about you, Smita?
Yeah, I do. I do get affected by
Nice.
Kirtan, and even if you listen to some Bollywood music, you can always concentrate on Srimati Radharani or Lord Sri Krishna.
Oh yeah, it's all everything is coming from Krishna. All this Bollywood music, the ragas they use, they are taken from the ancient system, and they've just been applied for commercial purposes, and that's why they're so effective. That's why they do affect you very much, these songs. And of course, we devotees, I've heard some song somewhere, and I said, "Oh, that's a nice Hare Krishna melody." So I've pinched it back. So on that point of stealing, Hare Krishna, Makan Chor ki,
Jai.
Gopi Vastra Chor ki, Krishna Chitta ki, Radharani Chor ki. Krishna steals Radharani as well.
Yeah.
So I wish everyone a happy Radhashtami on Saturday. Have a nice Radhashtami and make some plum chutney and offer it to your deities. Radharani always makes plum chutney for Krishna.
Okay.
And have a very nice Maharani ki,
Jai.
Radharani ki,
Jai.
Harshana Bali ki,
Jai.
Jai Jai Jai.
Can I suggest if anyone has got a recipe of the plum chutney to put it on the group, if that's allowed?
Yeah, I use my own concoction. I'll ask my wife if she makes a nice plum chutney actually. I'll ask her what she uses and I'll put it up there.
Okay, thank you.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. See you next week. Hari Hari.
Yes,
Very
Hare
well.
Krishna.